voting on the all-time 50, the top 50 Seahawks players, regardless of position, just the 50 greatest to ever wear the uniform. And they broke it down by positions. We voted online. We voted, you and I cast our own votes on this show, Dave, and I think we both voted for this guy, and it sounds like, well, it doesn't sound like it is. The fans voted for him as well because he has been nominated and he is one of the top 50 Seahawks of all time. Joining us now on the Emerald Queen Casino Sportsbook Hotline, he is Mack Strong. How are you, man?
Man, I'm doing great. How you guys doing?
We're doing great. What does that? How does that feel to hear one of the 50 greatest in the history of this organization to ever play? How about that?
You know, it's humbling. I guess I got a lot of family members out there that just spend a lot of time on the phone. Or on the internet voting over and over again. But no, it really is humbling. You know, I know there's been a lot of great players that's come through this organization in the last 50 years. And, you know, just to be considered, just to be in the running and to even be considered, be a nomination, it's just something I never thought, you know, I would ever get to see at any point, you know, especially at the end of my career. So just very honored by that, humbled by, you know, just that the fans haven't forgotten, you know, that, you know, all of us older guys that were on this list that ended up being a part of this, you know, just as we're part of something that's very unique here in Seattle. I think people love the Seahawks and the impact that they've had on this community. I think it's just something very special, and I'm grateful to be a part of it.
Well, and Mack, you've got like a storybook story, basically. And I when you came in to the league, I was leaving to go to Denver, and I won't tell you about all the times that I whooped Mack's ass on the field because, you know, we don't want to go there.
It'd be a short story.
I can't even say it with a straight face. No, but when you showed up, you're a free agent out of Georgia, right? And yep. I know that you've come a long ways, but everybody told me that you had like a black garbage sack for a suitcase that you brought in.
My
I don't know if that's true or not, but I mean, you start off as a free agent, work your way up, and then, you know, just the way that you endeared yourself with the fans here in Seattle. Everybody loved Mack Strong, and you're just such a great leader. I remember when I had to do media, you were always one of the go-to guys that I could go to talk to after a game. But, yeah, I mean, it's been an amazing ride for you with the Seahawks.
Yeah, you know, I was thinking about that today. You know, I found out yesterday that I made the team. So, you know, I thought about the beginning. Right, humble beginnings, yeah. And I thought about not being drafted, and at the time, not getting drafted. I thought, okay, that's it. My career is over. It was over before it even got started. But you know, playing on the practice squad the entire first year, 1993, and then coming back, making the team the next year, but being inactive the first 8 games. So the first 24 games of, you know, my existence here in Seattle, I'm on the sideline twiddling my thumbs, just itching for the opportunity to get in. And then I was finally able to get in, and then at that point I was like, I'm not letting go of this. And so you know, I think my story is just a story of just, you know, what can happen. It's not about the beginning of something, but it's how you finish. Mm-hmm. And so I'm just grateful that I was able to stay on to this, you know, organization, especially, you know, as you know, things started heated up in free agency, right? Guys been able to go to other teams and make more money and all that kind of stuff. And for whatever reason, it just felt right for me to be here, raise my family here, be a part of this organization. And I'm grateful I did because, you know, I was able to go to a Super Bowl and all of those things. And so I'm grateful for all of that. I mean, all of that comes to mind as I think about my time, you know, there in Seattle.
What were you being told before the draft when you came out? I mean, today the media is so prominent. Everything's on social media. I mean, you're hearing from every voice there is. Back when you were coming out, were you being told by, I don't know, your agent? Were you talking to people that say, hey, we think you're going to be picked late in the draft, or did you know you'd be a free agent? What was that process like for you back then?
Yeah, well, you know, being a fullback, first of all, nobody was really drafted fullbacks a lot.
Right.
And the year I came out in '93, that was the first year they went from having like whatever 12 rounds to 7 rounds. So so you know, a lot of teams. I mean, the Detroit Lions were like it was laughable. They were like, "Oh yeah, we may take you in the second round." I'm like, "No, there's nobody taking any. You're not taking any fullbacks in the second round, so you're not fooling anybody with that one." But I would say I grew up in Georgia. I went to the University of Georgia. The running back coach from Georgia, Ollie North, worked me out for like an hour. I did a personal workout for him. And I always thought I was going to Atlanta, and they stayed in touch with me throughout the whole process. And then, right at the end, then they wanted to sign me as a free agent. But I was ticked at that point, to be honest with you. I was like, they just kept dragging me along, and I felt like, I want a new start. I wanted a fresh start. I hadn't seen much of the country or anything, and there were a couple other teams that, showed interest in me, and Seattle was one of them. And I'd never been to Seattle. I'd never been further west than Colorado. And so I was like, man, Pacific Northwest, Seattle, I think it rains a lot there. That's going to be, that'll be something to get used to. But, let's see what happens. The only person I'd ever heard of from here is two guys, Steve Largent, and I think the year before, Cortez Kennedy on the 2 of 14 team had won Defensive Player of the Year,
right?
Which I was like, that was phenomenal. But and then I made my way out here, and obviously the rest is history. So I'm just grateful. You just never know how things are going to turn out, and that's how it was for me.
Hey, Mack, one of my, I think it was my second year, I think it was 2005, when you guys had just that awesome offensive line. And I told this story just the other day because, and this is a compliment, but because it's kind of like when Tyler Lockett drops a pass, we're like, you remember it, right? But you guys were playing the then Redskins, and it was like 3rd and 2, and you had that offensive line with Robbie Tobeck, Steve Hutchinson, Walter Jones, you at fullback, and then Sean Alexander at tailback, and it was a 3rd and 2, and you guys didn't pick it up. And I was like shocked because that was like an automatic thing for you guys. Tell us about that year. And I think Sean, that was the year he went for 2,000.
Well, he had 1,800 yards. He was the league MVP that year.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. But
he was the league MVP.
Did you guys kind of feel like that? Like this is almost automatic?
Yeah, well, I think a little bit. I mean, you got to remember, to start off the season, we were 2-2, right? And we had a bunch of injuries. I mean, Tula Mealy went down. I mean, some of our best players went down, right? I think Kenny Hamlin got hurt, kind of some bar fight, at late night bar fight or something like. He almost died. I mean, but so he was on IR. I mean, so we had a lot of guys like, that were playing that we weren't projected to necessarily be playing, at the beginning of the season. And so we started off 2-2. It was like, and I remember everybody was like, oh, same old Seahawks, high expectations, and they're under delivering. And then for some reason we came together. We just really did. I think we knew that we had a good team, and that we were all gonna have to play, our best football, and then I think we rattled off like 11 wins in a row. Yeah. And during that time, I think that's when we, especially the offensive unit, that offensive line really started flexing their muscles, and really everybody. Sean was running like crazy. I mean, I think he ended up with 1,880 yards and ended up being the team's only league MVP in the 50-year history. So that was a very special year. That's what I always remember about that. Obviously, get to the Super Bowl and falling short of that's forgettable. But everything else, up until that point, I'll cherish for the rest of my life.
Is there an individual highlight for you, maybe a specific play in a random game that always stands out to you as, man, what a moment, or anything like that from your career that when you reflect back, like, yeah, that I'm always going to remember this moment or that play or this success?
Well, it's funny you mentioned that, because that year, I don't know if you guys remember, but right after Sean won the MVP, I think we played the Redskins again at home. And, we had a home, I think it was the second round game or whatever, and he got knocked out. He got knocked out of the game. Mm-hmm. And so, the rest of us had to pick up the slack, right? The league MVP goes down, and anyway, they ended up calling, I was doing a lot of the third down work, because they would typically on third down would do a lot of pass protection. And so but they ended up calling my number to run the ball, and I ended up having like a 32-yard run in the playoffs, and at the time, it was the longest run in playoff history for the Seahawks, 32 yards.
Wow.
And then obviously there's another young man that came along in 2010 that made an earthquake. They created an earthquake.
Yeah.
I think that's a moment that I remember. I got a picture of that run, kind of sitting up in my room that I have all my pictures in. So I always remember that one.
That's funny, Mac. I thought you were going to tell this one, and I don't know if you know when this happened, but it was 3rd and 15, and Holmgren ran a draw to Mack Strong, and you picked up 16 yards. And I remember everybody in the stadium's going, "What the hell are you doing?" And you somehow scratched it out, man. But yeah, how much do you keep in touch with that Super Bowl team? You guys go to Super Bowl 40, and who are the guys that you connect with still?
It's really challenging to stay in touch. Probably say Sean is probably the guy I stay in touch with the most.
Yeah.
Sean, I saw Hasselback, a couple of months ago, because I don't live in Seattle anymore. I live in Pullman, Washington, which is, my wife is a professor at Washington State University. So I used to see a lot more guys. I talk to True Fun every now and then. I'm a consultant with the NFL now. I reach out to former players to make sure that they get resources and benefits that they've earned. So I come over to Seattle like at least once a year, typically during their Legends Weekend, and I always do a presentation for all the guys that come in from around the country for that event.
Yeah.
But other than that, it really is hard to kind of stay in touch with guys. Everybody's doing their own thing. We're not getting any younger. At least I'm not. Maybe you are, Dave. But
a little bit.
I'm an empty nester. My kids and I, so my wife and I just kind of enjoying our time out here in Pullman.
So do you? How much do you keep in touch with just how things are going with the league? Something Dave and I always talk about is some of the positions that seem like they kind of get phased out and then they come back into fashion. Whether it was a tight end and now fullback seems like it was almost extinct, and now Seahawks made it a point to draft fullbacks. They've made a tight end from last year into fullback. They draft players this year. They plan to go with a fullback. So I don't know if it'll be a league-wide thing, but it feels like there might be some resurgence for your old position.
I hope so. I really do. It's more of a passing league. It has been for the past 10 years now. I think there's such an affinity with stretching the field and big play, explosive plays and things like that. You don't necessarily think about that when you think about the fullback. The fullback is more blowing up guys, at the line of scrimmage and 2 or 3 yards in a cloud of dust. But I will say this: it seems like the teams that are more successful, that get to the playoffs and even get to the top game into the Super Bowl, or team. I think about the San Francisco 49ers come to mind. I mean, they have a phenomenal fullback. Juszczyk, who's I think just every year just goes to the pro. He does a great job of just doing a little bit of everything for them, and that's what when I think about good fullbacks in this league, especially when I was playing. That's what we added to the team. We did a little bit of everything. We probably weren't good at any one thing, but we just did a lot of different things that probably helped teams to be successful.
Now, you mentioned you're working for the NFL, Mac, and they do a really good job, but I do think, and it's great that you're kind of putting the word out. Like, I think there's a lot of guys like me that I'm not taking advantage of all the, different things the NFL has to offer. One of which, by the way, I heard that they can make a highlight film of you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
I want a low light film. I like the opposite of that. But no, I mean, yeah, there's lots of things, and that's what you're working with right now, like kind of putting the word out, right? To mostly to just former players is who you're working with, correct?
Yeah, exactly. It's former players, and it's and my job is to let guys know what different resources and benefits are available to them. Yeah. There are a lot of guys. I mean, they're depending on how long you played, what CBA you played under, all those things. That's a factor. There are resources and benefits that are available to you, and the sad part about sometimes this stuff is that guys not only do they not know what their benefits are, but they don't take they don't take advantage of it. So that's really hard, you know. So that's the reason why I got in it, is to make sure that guys just were knowledgeable about that stuff and help them to know how to access that stuff.
Yeah, good work, man.
Hey, Mack, congratulations on being named one of the 50 greatest to ever put on a Seahawks uniform, man. That's quite an honor. You deserve it. We're getting a ton of texts in here. Tell Mack I love him. I'm always going to remember this play. I'm going to remember that play. And he was great. He's the best. So you got a lot of love coming from our listeners here, and you deserve it, man. It's great to see you. Great to talk to you about it, and congrats on that.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Thanks, Mack.
There you go. Mack Strong, one of the 50 greatest to ever put on a Seahawks uniform. How about that?
Yeah. Just off the field, I think everybody loved Mack. Everybody.